Okay, so first of all, this class, Bezrat Hashem, and the class is moving forward, should be a big bracha for your home. Moving forward, it should bring you a lot of da'at. Rabbi Nachman says that when you want to have children, and you're trying to have blessing in your life, then you should spread da'at with others. Because really, in truth, all bracha starts off as da'at above, and then it triculates down to this world, and it devolves into physical things. But its source is da'at. That's why Rabbi Nachman says elsewhere that when you pray Barchenu or Barech in the Amidah, you should be really thinking about da'at and not about parnasa. Because in that way you get the da'at and the parnasa, because it's included, everything's included in the spiritual. Whereas if you are just thinking about parnasa, you don't necessarily get the da'at with it. Okay? So that's first off. And second, you should be extra blessed for your wife having Masir Nefesh, to allow you to go to Uman for Rosh Hashanah this year and to bring your sons with you. So that's a whole additional blessing. And Bezrat Hashem, through this class, you're going to get to see as well why that was so important and why that should bring bracha and hatzlacha and shefa into your home. Amen. This class should also be for the names mentioned here, but I'm just going to say it privately, and then we'll begin the class. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to start, and for the next 2 weeks before Sukkot, we're going to do a Torah on Sukkahs. Okay? We have the ability to do class next week as well, because Sukkot starts on Shabbat. So if you're open for it, it's going to work out well. So this is Torah Memchet, Moach, the mind. But not in Tinyana, which is the famous Torah, which is the Rebbe's letter, which we're actually going to see some parallels, which I noticed today. This is Memchet of the first section. This Torah was given in 1802, right after Simchat Torah. And if your memory is able to recollect, and you know a little bit of Breslov history, so you know that Rav Natan joined Rabbeinu's Chevra in 1802, right before Rosh Hashanah. So therefore, this is only a few weeks after Rav Natan was introduced to Rabbi Nachman, had Rosh Hashanah by Rabbi Nachman, had Yom Kippur by Rabbi Nachman, went home for Sukkot, and came back for Simchat Torah. And in fact, you're going to see through this lesson that everything that Rav Natan went through during Sukkot at home is alluded to in this Torah. And in fact, he planned on giving this Torah before Rav Natan came, and decided to wait until Rav Natan came to hear it. And from this, the Breslover Hasidim understood that this whole Torah was for Rav Natan.
Wow, classic.
Yes, usual. So from this, you can already see the Midrega of Rabbi Nachman, that he's able to understand things that he doesn't physically see, and then know exactly when to give over something to the exact person who needs to hear it. And I hope, as with Hashem, this lesson is going to impact all of us in a deep way, and to prepare us for Sukkot, as well as to understand the days leading up to Sukkot. That includes Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, up until Sukkot itself, and then even through Shmini Atzeret, based on the kavanot of the Arizal, the deep hasagas of the great Kabbalist, the Ari HaKadosh, who Rabbi Nachman takes and encloses in a practical moral lesson for us to bring into our life. Here it goes. Lashon Rabbeinu Zichronan Livracha. This lesson is in the language of Rabbeinu. That means that he himself gave it over just like this. Al Asher Ma'altem Bi B'mei Merivat Kadesh Midbar Tzin. This is a pasuk from Devarim. This is from Parsha, which is given over actually as the Haftarah this weekend for Shabbat. Every Shabbat, which is called Shabbat Shuvah. This is the Shabbat of Tshuva. Why? Because it's in these 10 days of Tshuva between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, these 10 days. The Haftarah during this time is about Moshe Rabbeinu being told by Hashem he's not going to be able to enter the land of Israel. We're going to see many connections to this. What's the reason he wasn't able to enter the land? So Hashem tells him, because you didn't sanctify me in front of the Jewish people, which was clear. What it meant was Hashem wanted him to pray. He wanted him to speak to the rock, and then Moshe hit the rock. There's many different explanations. There's maybe more mafarshim on this than anything, is to explain what Moshe really did that caused him not to get into the land of Israel. What was so great that Hashem said with such intensity and fervor that Moshe had made such a grave error. Rabbi Nachman has an unbelievable chidush on it, and it's alluded to in this Torah as well. So here we go. Tseiri. There's 10 different nekudot in the Torah. Nekudot are vowel points. Rabbi Nachman says elsewhere that the letters themselves are like a golem. They're like a lifeless external body. But what makes them go, what makes them tick, what makes them operate, what makes them move is the nekudos. And what you can see is a beautiful illusion, because when you read the Torah, you look at the Torah itself, you can't actually say any word in the Torah. You can have the whole Torah in front of you, and you literally can't say one word in there unless you know the nekudos, unless you know the good points that are there. And those good points cause the thing to move. They cause them to have ruach, to have energy and life force, to have real fervor for life. And then they start to move, and you can verbalize them. Each of those is connected, of these 10 sfirot, is connected to the 10 sfirot, Each of these 10 vowel points is connected to a different one of the 10 sfirot. The highest sphere, which is called Keter, is connected to the vowel point which is called Kamatz. Kamatz, it looks like this.
Didn't you see what Tzera is?
Well, we're going to get there in a second. Yeah. Kamatz is Keter. Why is Kamatz Keter? Because Kamatz literally means closed or concealed. And we know, and we, like Kmitza, right? When Aaron HaKohen went to go in there and to close his hand, why is the Keter called Kamatz? Because it's called the unknowable head in Kabbalah, which means to say, very simply, that the level of consciousness which is apprehendable there is concealed. It's hidden. It's the highest level, and it's also the most hidden of all the levels. In that sense, that even if you got there, you wouldn't be able to consciously apprehend what it is that you're seeing there, because it's super conscious.
It's strange because it's the most visible of all the ones. It's the only one that gets a keter.
The crown.
I don't think anyone gets a noun. That's a hoya, so they're all kind of,
interesting.
of abstract sounds. But this is this is an object.
So I think the way
it's hidden.
Right. So the way to think about it is that all those different parts of the sfirot, which are connected to different body parts, they're all within your body. Even the mind is in your head, and you can't see it, but at least it's within you. Yeah. The crown is lying above your head, which is symbolizing, besides the fact that it's the highest level, it represents authority on the highest of levels, it represents the king, it represents what gives him the koach to be able to maneuver and manipulate reality, right? It's the highest of all levels, and yet it's above his head, which represents something which transcends one's consciousness. So that's why it's above the head.
I like it.
Good, I just made it up 5 seconds ago. You're my guinea pig. I'm glad it worked out for you.
That's why on other things it says what it is. Like netzach is netzach, hod is hod. I guess there's like a metaphor, because we can't really fathom it.
Yeah.
It sounds like what you're saying.
And if you connect it as well to the famous sixth lesson in Likutey Moharan, where Rabbi Nachman speaks about running and returning.
Qatar.
Right, Qatar, which means to wait. What's the hardest thing to do?
Wait.
To wait. Why is it so hard to do? Because we can't understand why we're waiting. That's the whole point. If you know why you're waiting, you're not really waiting. Right?
Yeah.
It's
the experience of I'm supposed to get somewhere, I'm not there yet.
Yeah. That whole process is actually super conscious. Okay, that's the keter, that's the crown. You ultimately get there, Rabbi Nachman says, by going up and going down, and going up and going down, and somehow through this whole process, you achieve this highest level of the keter, the crown. Okay, next level is what's called chokhmah. Chokhmah means the mind. It represents wisdom. The Tanya speaks about this, that it's like a lightning bolt of intuition. Like when you have an idea for something, right? How does it start? It starts with ratzon, with your, that's the count, that's the crown, that's the keter. My ratzon is I want to do something. As soon as I want something, it starts to create within me ideas for things. But you'll notice that before I had the idea, I had a want first. The want actually gives birth to new ideas. Ratzon. Okay? That's why Rabbi Nachman says, even if you just want something holy, it's a very great thing. Because the wanting itself, that lets you unlock the thinking about it, the feeling it, the doing it, right? It all starts with Ratzon. So in this sense, we can consider or conceive of Ratzon or Keter as like an undifferentiated light. It's like the light of God. Okay? At that level, though, because it's undifferentiated, you can't conceive of it. There's nothing to apprehend from it. Chokhmah is that light beginning to reveal itself in this world. So in that sense, it's a benefit to us because we can begin to comprehend wisdom, Chokhmah. But on the other hand, it's still just like that light of Keter, meaning it's undifferentiated. So in that sense, it's still very hard to chap. Okay? That's Chokhmah. What's the vowel point which is connected to Chokhmah? Patach. Patach is a line like this, and Patach literally means open. So as opposed to before, Petach, which is a door. So as opposed to before, we have Kamat, which means it's closed. We have that same light, and it's beginning to open. Okay? However, even at this place, it's still an undifferentiated light. It's very close to the Keter itself, and therefore we can't really experience it with full cognition and understanding. When can we begin to chap what's in the Keter, which then trickles down to the Chokhmah, and be able to finally experience the light of Hashem? It's within Bina. Bina is the next Sphira, and in Kabbalah they explain that the Nekuda Tzeri.
Makes sense. It literally looks like a patash, just split in half almost.
So you're going to see that's going to come up in a moment. Yeah. That you have these two dots, that's the Nekuda of Bina. Bina is understanding. So we have a line like this, which is closed. Then we have a line which is open. And then, like Noam said, that line becomes split in two. So you have the first aspect of two-ness or differentiation, which is the whole nuance of Bina. Bina takes that undifferentiated light of God, which is pure kindness and love and compassion and empathy and blessing, and it begins to differentiate it and give it substance. Okay? Tseiri. Now Rabbi Nachman says, Zebechinat v'yetzer. When Hashem made Adam, it said that he formed him. Where else does he say he formed? About the animals. And it was on the same day. However, in this case, when he created Adam, there's two yuds. When he created the behema, and Hashem created animals, right? Wildlife of the animal kingdom is one yud. What's the reason? So Chazal have a famous exposition on this, and they explain the two yuds are for the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Har. Meaning that Hashem purposely made Adam different than a behema only in this one way. And we could see this. Many ways we're very similar to animals. We eat like animals, we drink like animals. Well, hopefully we don't do it like animals, but we do it like animals. Everything that we do is just like animals. The only thing that we have that they don't is what's called bechira, free will. Now, what is it that we love that, right? We have free choice. We can choose our life. We can choose our destiny. We can take ownership of our life. We can become the heroes of our life through our choices. We can totally transform our life through our choices. So that's a beautiful thing. But what comes with that is the ability to be able to choose between things that are constructive or destructive, which comes with a lot of vulnerability, right?
You're playing with fire, basically.
Right. But that's what allows you to choose. If you're not able to play with fire, you can't choose. So that's why the Torah was given to us, so we can choose correctly. In this sense, it maintains our free will. And on the other hand, we have enough wisdom to be able to try to make the right choices. And obviously, Rabbi Nachman says, you then take that Torah and turn it into tefillah, and that's what actually gives you the koach to be able to make the right choice that you see in the Torah itself, right? Okay. So this, says the Zohar, is Yitzira Latav, Yitzira Lavish. You have an inclination to do things that are positive for you, and you have an inclination to do things which are actually harmful to you. Yitzira l'schar, Yitzira l'onesh. You have a desire for things that are going to have a positive and, what's the word?
Detrimental?
As far as like
Positive?
like a profitable, I don't know.
Yeah. They say it's like reward, but in this class we're going to say it's like... My brain has left me. But it's like a reward, okay? And then in this case, you have the opposite. I desire to do things which is not going to bring me a reward, but it's actually going to have the opposite effect, okay? That's all through the tseiri, or the bina. Bechina din v'rachamim. This is the concept of compassion and judgment. We know that when Hashem created the world, He originally wanted to make the world just with din. There's a famous midrash. It says it in multiple places. He wanted in different ways. Hashem wanted to make the world just through strict judgment, which means to say, He wants to give us free will, and He wants that every single thing that we do, we have a reciprocal response for it. Not because He's tit for tat or because He's so makpid on things, but because He wants that every single good thing that we do, we should be able to have equal good as a response, which is great, because then I know if I'm doing good, I'm receiving good, I know I'm on the right track, and if not, the opposite. However, He saw that we wouldn't be able to function like this because the power of the Yetzer Hara is very great, and it says in Masechet Sukkah that every single day, your Yetzer Hara, Mom is just trying to figure out new ways to kill you that day, which means to say, he's not appearing to you in the same way each day. He's camouflaging himself in a different way, because once you chop, this is his move here, and Rabbeinu helps you to overcome it there. Next day, you think, okay, finally, I'm going to be good now. And all of a sudden, something else comes, and it totally throws you off track. Why? Because that's the whole goal of the Yetzer Hara, is to continuously give you free will. That's why it's called an angel. It's called a malach, even though it seems to be destructive. Because it's really providing me with something very good, which is it's constantly giving me bechira, free will. In that sense, this represents din and rachamim. Okay? My Yetzer Tov is like compassion, it's like rachamim, and the Yetzer Hara is like din, it's like judgment. This is all the concept of bina. Meaning, where do these two facets come from? They come from bina. Shesham notzer havalad. Because in Kabbalah, they explain that Bina is like a supernal womb. Just like women give birth to children, and they have a womb, and in that womb gestates for 9 months a child, and then is born, and it comes from this ephemeral seed, which is totally undifferentiated existence, and yet it's very powerful and contains everything within it, aka Chokhmah. Once that enters into Bina, which means the womb, it now begins to take shape and form over the course of 9 months, and then gives birth to what Kabbalah calls Zer Anpin, or small face, or Yaakov, right? So that's all alluded to within the Bina. The Bina is the womb. The fact that women have a womb is actually a reflection of the fact that there's this Bina, this supernal womb, this place of creation, okay? That's where the Chokhmah, the seed of God, meaning the light of God, is drawn into and begins to become differentiated and formed. That's where one's Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara comes from. It comes from Bina. Like it says in the Pasuk in Mishlei, Ki im lebina tikra. As if for Bina you're going to call her. And the Zohar says, don't read it im, like if or with. Read it aim, like mother. Meaning that Bina, you see from this pasuk, if you read it as aim, ki aim, because aim, labina tikra, call her Bina. So you see an explicit reference, even though it's implicit, that really Bina is the mother. It's the mother principle, as they call it in Chassidut. Okay? V'sham shnei bechinot chesed v'din. And she has 2 children that she gives birth to. Even though down here we have twins that are physical, she gives birth originally to twins as well. They are called Chesed and Din, or Yaakov and Esav. Ki misham dinin mitarim, because there's also another famous concept in Kabbalah that judgments are aroused in Bina. And it's important to know that at the level of Keter, Chokhmah, and Bina, these 3 highest sfirot, or what they call kabad in Kabbalah, like a kebab, but a holy kebab, okay? Keter, Chokhmah, and Bina are pure kindness, pure chesed. There is no intermingling of anything negative in these 3 highest sfirot.
That's before the womb.
Because it's, right, because it's all leading up to the
Before
womb.
Bina.
Nothing's been given birth to yet.
Okay.
Right.
It's not for in any whatsoever in difficult sense, not din.
Right,
It's not
like a
bad.
pregnancy. Like
She's still zera.
like for instance, if let's just for the sake, none of this is physical, and it's really important to know this for anybody who's listening, and this is like your intro to Kabbalah. Everything that we're saying, that we're speaking about is reflecting itself in the physical world. That spiritual reflection has no physicality whatsoever. We can't picture it at all. Everything here is merely a reflection to that, so we can understand it at least at some level. But don't think that anything that we're saying above is physical. None of it's physical. Okay. But so to speak, for our own conception, we'll say that Keter is like the seed of a man while it's still in his mind. We know that Zera is coming from the spinal cord, right? Which is leading up to one's brain. Therefore, it's really coming from his mind, which is why in Kabbalah it says that that's why the seed is white, because it's coming from the whiteness of one's mind. Now, even though when we see a brain, we see it pink, it's not pink in the skull. It's more like whitish. Okay, it's only once you're able to see it, like blood, becomes red, pinkish. It has that pigment. Okay, so Keter is like the seed while it's still in the mind, and therefore it's totally undifferentiated. Then Chokhmah is like the seed itself. There's no problems with the seed, and we know as men that when a man gives forth seed, there's no pregnancy. There's no obstacles to it. It's very easy and it's very enjoyable. Chokhmah is just like that. Makes you feel like that. Like Rabbi Nachman says, he's satiated just on Chokhmah itself. No food, no drink. It's good on Chokhmah. His mom's like, yeah, but you need to eat something. And then he told her, like, yeah, that's true for normal people, but like I really can satiate myself just on Chokhmah. Okay? Bina is the beginning of pregnancy. Now it's beautiful because she gives birth to a reality which never existed before. And that reality is the foundation of the whole world. That's why she's called the Aim Kol Chai. Chava is called the mother of all life because she's the womb of existence. On the other hand, as anybody knows, a woman who gives birth, it's difficult. There's challenges that come with it. There's a lot of blood involved, which represents dinim, judgments. And the aspect of pregnancy, though, outside of, like, let's say, that sickness that a woman will go through, or the fatigue, or any of these things, inside the womb, if everything's healthy, there's no problems there. The problems only come when the child, theoretically, hopefully there is no problems, but when they come out. Right? Even let's say the depression that women will go through, that's only after they give birth. It's not while they're pregnant. It's after. Okay? So too here, Bina is only good, just like the womb is only good. But it's the beginning, it's like the nascent beginnings of judgment, even though it's not actual judgment. Okay? Why is that important? Because the only way to sweeten a judgment is at its source. This is another important principle in Kabbalah that Rabbi Nachman is constantly going to refer to.
Sure.
Yeah. The root of anything is the only place to rectify it, to achieve tikkun for it. So in this case, judgments, as they devolve into this world, and judgments can be anything. Judgments could be, I'm being falsely accused of something at work for taking somebody's money and I never did that. That's a judgment. It could even be simply me going into my wallet and wanting 3 coins and there's 2. That's a judgment. If I trip in the street, that's a din. Obviously, bigger things like I have a sickness, it's a judgment. I have trouble having children, it's a judgment. My kids aren't going in a way which is giving me nacha, it's a judgment. All these things are dinim, judgments.
Is there ever good judgments? I know for this context we're talking about difficult ones, but is there such thing as good judgments?
Yes, so Rabbi Nachman has a whole lesson on judgments which come from Gevura, the sphere of Gevura, which is Yitzchak, and those are holy judgments, he calls them. Okay, dinim and kedusha. Those judgments are only good for you. But then there are dinim that when they're of kedusha, but they're not handled the right way, they devolve and then they become just judgments. But for either of these judgments, the source of both of them is really the same, which is bina. So therefore, we have to be able to chap what bina is. We have to be able to really grasp what bina is. It's so vitally important because that's the place where we're going to sweeten all judgments, which is the purpose of this world. It's to rectify all broken things. It's to heal all the sick. It's to lift up all the fallen. And it's to be able to sweeten all of the judgments. She's in bina. In other places,
Sweeten the judgment doesn't sound like you're not eradicating them or destroying them or
Even better, you're making
You're
it.
sweetening them,
doing
but they still
teshuvah.
stay.
They still stay, right?
Interesting.
Because everything at its source is good.
You're adding sugar to this thing and then sweetening it.
We're gonna encompass it. So this is a big concept, and Bezrat Hashem, since we're gonna be doing classes moving forward together, we'll take time to really flesh out each concept because we're gonna always be dealing with these. Okay? It's a big idea in Kabbalah that there's a right side and there's a left side. The right side represents Hashem's compassion, Hashem's love, his desire to give, his desire to draw close to us. The left side represents seemingly the opposite. It represents strictness and judgment and distancing. Okay? Now, why is there a left side? That, like we just said, this gives us free will. However, the purpose of our lives and the purpose of this world and how it all heals and is fixed, Kabbalah teaches, is when you take the left and you encompass it in the right. Because the left is not supposed to exist in and of itself. It's only supposed to exist while being encompassed in the right. This is the secret of hand clapping. While many people think that Breslovers are crazy, they're clapping their hands while they pray, they're clapping their hands outside, they're always clapping their hands, what's the deal with the clapping of the hands? But it's a very deep thing. Left side represents judgments, right side represents compassion. These judgments need to be sweetened. They need to be encompassed in the right. And when you clap your hands, you're doing that. Okay? There's a lot of mechanisms in the mitzvot and in Kabbalah where you are encompassing the left and the right and you don't even know that you're doing it. Okay? Now, that's what's called sweetens it. You're not supposed to get rid of your left hand. The left hand's good, gives you free will. But you want to encompass the left and the right. As like a practical example, and I give this example quite often, there's different modes of parenting that have been taken up by different generations. So maybe a few generations ago, parenting was more on the left side, which means there was a toughness to it. There's a strictness to it. And a lot of times those kids end up coming out with trauma. Or they end up coming out feeling that there was neglect, or that their parents don't love them. There's a lot of damage that comes from just the left side. On the other hand, you have people more recently in our generation where it's more right-handed, which means there's a lot of love, there's a lot of attention, there's a lot of drawing close, there's not a lot of individuality, there's not a lot of distance, there's not a lot of you being you and me being me. It's a lot of what's in social work they call enmeshment, which is equally unhealthy and problematic. Ultimately, what is good parenting? Good parenting is I need both of those, but I have to make sure that when I use the left, which means discipline, it always has to be encompassed in the right, which means simply, I'm only doing it because of my love for you. There are times when parents respond to their kids because it's making them frustrated and overwhelmed by getting angry. Why are they getting angry? They're not getting angry sometimes. They're not getting angry because this is their mechanism for being able to teach their child a lesson which is going to benefit them in their life. It's coming from a lack of resources. I don't know what to do in this situation. I'm overwhelmed. I'm scared. I feel like my core is being shaken, and so I'm lashing out. That only damages children. And the reason is very simple, because it's the left without being encompassed in the right. That's judgments. What I need to do is take that concept of discipline and figure out how can I utilize it within the enclothement of love. I need to constantly enclothe judgment in love. And in this way, I'm enclosing the left and the right. I'm encompassing the left and the right, okay? What could it mean for us with the Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara, right? My Yetzer Tov just wants spirituality. My Yetzer Hara is pining for physical. Mom is like an intense, like it's so all-encompassing. When it grabs you, you can't even think about anything else. So comes the Baal Shem Tov to say, don't get rid of that. Just use it for Hashem. You have a crazy taiva for pleasure. okay, make your Judaism the most pleasurable thing in your life. Why is he saying this? It wasn't just because people were going off the derech and he wanted to figure out a way to help them get back on. It's because that's the ultimate tikkun. Taking the left side and utilizing it for the right. That's sweetening it. We don't want to get rid of the left, we want to elevate it. We don't want to get rid of physical, we want to elevate it. Okay? So now, Rabbi Nachman says, Hi bechinat sukkah, and this is the concept of the sukkah. Everything that we just said now is the concept of the sukkah, meaning bina. We explained so far that bina represents the supernal womb. Bina is the birthplace of spiritual creation, and everything that's created spiritually has to manifest physically. Therefore, the sukkah represents all of these same qualities. The sukkah is the birthplace of the rest of your year. So to speak, just like we spoke about, you have a seed which exists in the crown, and then it comes down and it actually takes the form of seed, but it's undifferentiated. That represents like the beginning of the year for us, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. There is a seed which is being created and being established, but it doesn't give birth to your year yet. That's why they teach in Kabbalah that even though your year has been determined on Rosh Hashanah, it hasn't actually been cemented until Shmini Atzeret, Simchat Torah. What's the reason? Because it needs to first enter into the womb and find its place.
And the sukkah is literally like a place to live in.
And the sukkah is literally a womb. Literally a womb. Okay? Therefore, they say you should spend as much time there as you can. You should sleep there. You should eat there. It's the only mitzvah that we have that fully encompasses your body. That when you go in there, you're literally sitting and you're enclosed in a mitzvah. You're encompassed within the mitzvah. So now we can picture as we're walking into the sukkah, we're really walking into Bina. We're walking into a womb. We're walking into the birthplace of the rest of our year. That's a whole different sukkah experience. He's like, yo, pass me the bud, man. This is great. Okay. Tesukeni meveten imi. Rabbi Nachman says, where is this alluded to? Because King David says that you should enclothe me in the womb of my mother. And this word to be enclothed or to be covered or to be encased is really the root of the word sukkah. And listen to the pasuk itself. It's mamish dafka what Rabbi Nachman said, that you should encase me in the womb of my mother. So we see the whole thing is very clearly alluded to in the Torah once Rabbi Nachman reveals it to us. That is, sukkah is bina. Sukkah is the mother. She enclothes you. And here's the practical part. And this is the part that we got to take with us into the sukkah. This is the practical part that we have to take with us for the whole year. This is the practical part that we need to take with us the rest of our life. This is so critical, so important. This is something Rabbi Nachman stressed so often. This is what changed Rav Natan's life completely. This is what he went out into the woods and wanted to scream to everybody, listen, there's something that we're not doing, and it's a part of our Judaism, and it's so important, it's totally going to change your life. There is a way that you can put yourself in that sukkah whenever you want. Yes, we're going to have this experience of physically walking into the sukkah and having that unbelievable ha'ara, that unbelievable illumination that takes place in the sukkah itself. But whenever you want, you can create a womb for yourself to create a new reality. Mamash. How do you do that? Rabbi Nachman says, when you pray with koach, when you pray with energy, when you pray with what we're going to see is all your bones, like King David says.
Make that jump though from like sukkah.
We're going to see.
Yeah,
we're going to see. I like to whet the appetite a little bit.
Yeah, no one else does.
That's why you're a soup.
Sharp. Canadians are smart. Okay.
Which Torah is this, by the way?
I made the whole thing up.
So you're rubbing off.
No. But did I tell you that story, by the way? There's a funny story about that.
Which one?
When I was at Aish, like a year and a half ago, I was teaching Likutey Moharan over there. Baruch Hashem. And my Gemara class was slowly dwindling over time. And, more and more kids fell out of that class. which was largely due in part to my incompetence. But the Breslov Hasidus class, the Likutey Moharan class, was growing and growing. And even people who were outside of the program, but in Aish, were starting to come to that class. And even people outside of Aish were finding their way into that class.
Who was teaching? You were teaching?
I was teaching that class.
In Ish.
Yeah. Actually, when I first started teaching there, somebody said to me, "You're teaching Likutey Moharan at Aish?" He goes, "You should know, I have a siman that Mashiach is coming. The Geula is coming, I know, because somebody's teaching Likutey Moharan at Aish."
David, I watched when I was at Aish, and I was there at the beginning of the first few
Oh, you went to Aish?
I was there for a bunch of years.
Yeah.
And some guys started kind of getting a little bit into like Breslov. I watched a certain Rav, holy Yid, and you know, I trust that what he was doing was for like fun.
L'shem Shemayim.
But he took a Likutey Moharan and placed it in the Geniza in front of everybody.
Oh my
Because he wanted to make a
God.
sign like, please don't go that way. Because there were definitely guys who got burnt by
Wow,
it.
that's all they need. They don't need anything else they're teaching. They just need the.
One of my exposures to the first exposure to Likutey Moharan is watching you go to Geniza.
I'm in so much
Which
pain.
got me excited.
So much pain right now.
Yeah, it got me excited to actually learn it. Like,
Oh
I want
yeah?
that.
Had the opposite effect?
Of course.
It's amazing, by the way, how many people found Rabbeinu's books in Geniza. So many stories of people finding it in a Geniza or in the trash somewhere, like something crazy.
I got a full set in the trash.
Yeah. The only books you need are the ones that are just free, waiting for you to pick them up. So when I was there, I was teaching a class, and all of a sudden a guy comes in. He's new to the program. He's not part of the Gesher program I was teaching, which is for modern Orthodox Jewish boys who are going from high school to college, and it's like a last-ditch effort for their parents that they shouldn't get rid of their Judaism completely, send them to Israel, have a life-changing experience, come back, and find their place. So one guy comes in who's totally secular, who just joins Aish, and he sits down, and he's a little bit older than these guys, and he hears these kids that they're talking and they're joking, and I made it like that. I wanted it to be fun and enjoyable and silly, but he wasn't used to that. He sees me, wearing black and white and teaching a class, and them all joking and talking, and he gets really mad. And he goes, "Excuse me, guys, where's your respect?" And they're all looking at him like, "Who's this person?" And he goes, "Come on, Rabbi Nachman's teaching a class right now. How could you not listen?" Someone told him
Wow.
that there's a class, Rabbi Nachman's class upstairs, and he didn't know Breslov. He didn't know really anything. So he just heard Rabbi Nachman's classes upstairs, and he thought Rabbi Nachman was teaching the class.
I mean, this also happened tonight when my daughter was saying, my other daughter, my 4-year-old, saying, Rabbi Nachman's going to teach a class tonight.
Wow, unbelievable. So I had to break the news to him that I was not Rabbi Nachman. But that was an unbelievable first
That's
experience.
what he said. Everyone could be Kamoni.
Yeah.
How much?
Right. That's the Likutey over there. Looking for the good point there.
It's a good story.
Yes. So that was very funny. So anyway, we're gonna see how these things connect. How is that? Because we have a pasuk. It says, "Ko atzmotai tomarna." King David says in Tehillim, Parak 35, "With all my bones, I'm gonna pray to you." Someone once asked Rabbi Nachman, why are you so insistent that your Hasidim and the Jews in general should pray with such crazy fervor? It's so energized. And that's one of the reasons why people go to Uman, because they never prayed like that before. And it's just this most unbelievable experience of like, wow, this is Jewish. I can pray like this. I can experience God like this. I
Can't even do this in Eretz Yisrael. I feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
Hold back.
This is one of the hallmarks of Breslov Hasidus, to pray like this. Okay? Someone asked Rabbi Nachman about it, and they said, even the Arizal himself said you should pray quietly, silently. So he asked Rabbi Nachman, how could you come and say you should pray so loud and with so much energy? And Rabbi Nachman said, it's good what the Ari says, but I hold like the original Hasidim, the early Hasidim of ancient days, where they said that you should come to the king drenched in sweat. So when we're saying that you should pray with energy and fervor, we don't mean like, Hashem, come on, you gotta help me. We mean drenched in sweat. You know that the shuckling, the whole concept of shuckling from the Baal Shem Tov, and I don't want it to be weird from you from now on every time you shuckle to think about it. but the shuckling is supposed to emulate intimacy. That I'm in union with Hashem.
Oh. You just make it awkward.
Yeah. Now you're going to see Litvaks do it too, by the way, but that actually all started with the Baal Shem Tov. Nobody shackled before the Baal Shem Tov. Teach you how to shackle. Teach you how to shackle. Now, yeah, because nobody knows where it comes from. It came from the Baal Shem. Okay?
Isn't there like a pasuk that says like my bones?
Yeah, we just said that. We just said that. So the Baal Shem Tov said, okay, listen, King David prayed like that. We got to pray like that. What's the reason? Because what we're going to learn is it really does create an intimate relationship with Hashem. So intimate, it creates a sukkah when I do it. I'm in the womb now of godliness. Every time that I pray with such fervor and such energy and such koach, I enter into the womb of existence. Now, why is that important? Because Rabbi Nachman teaches in many different places that the way to change reality is you need to enter pre-creation. You need to enter a state of reality before the physical world was created. Because if you're going to pray from a place of post-creation, you can't change anything because you're in Teva.
You're already born.
You're in nature. And all your circumstances are in nature. How can I possibly change what's already going on? How can I have a nace, a miracle? I have to enter to a state of pre-creation. Now, we might think to ourselves, well, that's already over. But we're thinking of time and space, which is in the physical world. But when the Torah speaks about things, it's not talking about physicality. Everything in the Torah, yes, it happened. But it's also alluding to spiritual ideas and realities that exist concurrently to the physical world. That means that Bereishit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz, that Hashem created heaven and earth, was not a past event. It's for whoever wants to and has the capability and the wisdom and advice to tap into it. That's the place called pre-creation, Bereishit. And it's in that place that's before Hashem created the world, and it's that place that you can totally change your life. Now Rabbi Nachman says, now what is the, because that's the whole concept of Chassidus. These concepts are amazing, they're beautiful, they're deep, but Rabbi Nachman's Lamaisa, how do I get into that place where I can actually enter into that space and create new realities in my life? When you pray with tremendous energy and fervor, you are literally creating and entering into a sukkah. You're entering into Bereishit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. And in that place, it's before Yehi Or, it's before Tohu Vavu, and now Hashem can do anything for you in that space.
You're saying it's even before Chokhmah, before Keter, so to speak?
It's like in the Keter.
It's like the waiting room for reality.
Yeah.
Like nothing even went down yet.
Yeah, it's like right now everything went down, and that's why I'm totally stressed and overwhelmed. We think I need Hashem to change His mind on this. Hashem doesn't need to change His mind. You just need to enter into Hashem's mind.
What's like
You just need to enter into Hashem's mind, which is before creation. And then, you work things out from there. It's much easier than after the fact.
Maybe that's how finding Nikuta's Tovas could help, because I'm changing reality by going, I'm like rewriting it, so it could cause someone else remotely to do teshuvah. Because that's literally what I'm doing.
Right. He alludes to this in many different places. And this is all the concept of the sukkah. Like another pasuk in Eov says, Bagidim v'atzamot tisocheni. Eov is speaking about the fact that he is a neshama clothed within a body, and he's marveling at this reality. That Hashem created a neshama, that's his essence, and yet he gave him this coarse, dense, physical, external costume, which enclothes that soul. And he's marveling at this, and he's saying, within sinews, within bones, tisocheni, you have enclothed me. Again, it's the same word as sukkah. So now Rabbi Nachman is trying to bring you what Rav Kramer calls a proof text, to show you that when I'm telling you that when you pray with all your bones, that's a sukkah. This is for Noam. You want to know, how are they connected? You hear Noam?
Listen.
It's an open pasuk. The pasuk says that you created my soul and you surrounded it with bones. Meaning to say, surrounded is the sukkah. The sukkah is the bones. When I pray with all my bones, that's a sukkah. Praying with all my bones, I'm turning myself mamish into a sukkah. Okay? That's the pasuk. Begidim v'atzamot tisocheni. With sinews and with bones, you have encompassed me. That's the sukkah. Ki koach she'adam machnis b'tevot Because the power, the fervor, the energy which you enter into the words that are coming out of your mouth, they are the concept of koach atvan da'avda devareshi. This is from the Zohar, which is speaking about the 28 letters of Maaseh Bereshit. If you look at the first pasuk in the Torah, it says, Bereshit bar Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. And if you haven't flunked out of your math class yet, you'll see that there are 28 letters in that pasuk. Now, it might seem like happenstance, but we know that everything in the Torah is very important. And actually, the earlier you go, the more vital and important it is. And if you go to the first pasuk in the Torah, in a very deep way, there's nothing more important than that first pasuk. The fact that it's 28 letters, therefore, must be the most important number in some ways in the Torah. What is 28? So if you look at your hand, how many sections are in your fingers? Prakim. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Yad.
Same gematria as Yad. So again, you see how unbelievable the Torah is that when it speaks about the hand, it's the same numerical value as the actual components of the hand itself, 14, which happens to be the same gematria as David, which is also important. But in this case, what's 14 times 2?
28.
28. Why does Rabbi Nachman say clap? He says you bring in, when you clap, you mamish bring the Kedusha of the land of Israel. Koach. Koach. So when Rabbi Nachman says pray with koach, on one simple level he means with energy. But on a deeper level he means mamish with your koach. With the 28 prakim of your hands, which is gematria koach.
That's why you clap.
That's why you clap. In addition to that, when we talk about chokhmah, we know that chokhmah is really the beginning of bina, right? Now, if you take the word chokhmah, it actually divides into two words. Koach, ma. In Kabbalah, chokhmah represents the quality of ma. Total bittul, total self-nullification, total nullification of ego. Ma, what? It's in a state of I don't know. It's above my pay grade, and I'm willing to admit and to run into the experience of Hashem knows more than I do, and whatever is going on in my life must be for the good, even though I don't experience it like that. That's ma. And all the great tzaddikim had this quality of ma. Okay? Now, koach ma, which is chokhmah, right? What's koach? That's bina. So again, we have another allusion to the fact that bina, which is the womb, which is the sukkah, has most centrally to do with praying with koach.
One more time, why do you want to call koach bina?
Because you have chokhmah, and chokhmah really splits into two. Like Adam and Chava, right? In Kabbalah they explain that Adam represents chokhmah, which is why the gematria of his name is gematria ma. Adam is ma. What? Bittul. Then you have Chava, who was originally created with him, and they were split apart. She is koach. She's strength. She's power. Okay? So too here, chokhmah and bina, really, they're both chokhmah, and they get split. And the part of him that gets split, which is the more practical, which is the more logistical part, is called bina.
Chava was also 28.
No,
24, I mean.
that would have been really. That would have been.
That would have been.
Yeah, would have been great. Yeah.
I almost was Rabbi Nachman.
But it uses 18 plus 23 with a kola makes 20. No.
Nah.
Sorry, wait, I missed that one. No, 28. What are we,
Yeah.
Whoops.
Okay, we're not going
28?
No, we'll add that.
We're looking for
We'll
28.
give it
Okay, so again, try to follow me. You have chokhmah and bina. Chokhmah is Adam. Chokhmah is ma. What? Chokhmah is bittul. Chokhmah is seed. Always keep this in mind for all the further lessons. That's also the Likutey Tova, by the way. Okay? That's one of the big secrets of the Likutey Tova. It's that point of infinite good, which is within you. Okay? Then you have bina. which is Ima. Bina means understanding. Ima is the mother principle. That's the womb. It's also the sukkah. And Rabbi Nachman is trying to tell you that when you pray with all your bones, meaning when you pray with koach, that's the concept of the sukkah. Meaning, very simply, that when I pray mamish with all of my self, with all of my bones, when I mamish pour my guts out, to the extent that I'm sweating when I'm praying, that's called koach. That's called the sukkah. And we're saying, how do we see that? Because you have chokhmah itself, which then splits into, like Adam, into Adam and Chava. So chokhmah becomes koach ma. Koach ma. Two separate. Ma is chokhmah, and koach is bina. Got it now? Okay. Not simple things we're discussing here. This isn't your general run-of-the-mill Torah anytime shiur.
She's on 20%?
No, it's not one of those.
That would like break their server.
Bezat Hashem. One day. Hopefully one day. Shebehem nivra olam. And it was with these 28 letters of creation that Hashem created the whole world. So we see from this, when we want to create a new world, when we step into the sukkah, this Sukkot, we are stepping into a brand new world. But you can't just leave it in the sukkah. You got to create a sukkah for yourself every day. And the way you do is very simple. Go to the car, go to your room, go to the field, go wherever you're alone. Pray with all your bones. And hopefully you have a Breslov minion to pray with, so you can do that with a minion also. But that's the whole point. Praying with everything you got. And when you do that, all your bones, meaning with your koach is the 28 letters of creation. You're mamish entering back into the first pasuk in the Torah.
I mean, even like one paragraph Taylor, like even if okay,
Doesn't matter.
I mean, I'm like can't find any minion that like everybody will look at me like I'm crazy. I can't do it.
Makes no
Just
difference.
Find one paragraph Taylor,
Just
one
whatever. That
Just
you know, Rabbi Nachman, he actually, when he was a kid, he took Tehillim and he took out every single pasuk from Tehillim that made him feel like praying with all his koach.
Yeah.
And he highlighted it. And he would just go through Tehillim just with those pasukim. I've tried it like
The ones that he gets excited about.
the ones that he mamish, like he resonates with and it gets him excited about, right? A lot of people say the Likutey tefillah, it does that for them. Some people it's supposed to do it. I know that for me personally, I can't speak for everybody. I've had the zchut, Baruch Hashem, of getting very desperate at different times since I've started doing tshuva, and then praying with tremendous fervor in those moments, and having nisim, miracles happen. I was thinking back while learning this lesson, I was thinking back to every nace that I experienced, and I realized they all came from prayer that was with unbelievable koach. I never had a nace that I experienced that came just through tefillah. It was only tefillah with koach. And the reason is very simple, because that's Maaseh Bereshit. That's the 28 letters of creation, that's koach. That's how you recreate reality. That's a new world. Vasar Mamarot, and the 10 sayings of creation, Shebehem Nivra Olam, that with them was created the world, Mikablin Koach Mikoach Advan Elu. They receive all of their koach from those 28 letters. Okay? In a sense, the 10 sayings of creation is related to Chokhmah. Because from Chokhmah down to Malchut, there's 10 Sfirot. Okay? So whenever the Torah speaks about 10, it's usually speaking about the sphere of Chokhmah. When it speaks about 10 in a minyan, why is there so much power there? It's Chokhmah. Okay? 10 is Kedusha, and Kedusha, or Kodesh, is always the concept of Chokhmah. Now, the 10 sayings of creation, what actually gives them power? It's the female principle, it's the Bina, it's the Koach, it's the 28 letters of creation. So to speak, these 10 sayings of creation, they're like the seed of reality, but they have no reality of their own. Just like your tefillah, when you come to pray, when you come to say, it's potential reality, but what makes it actual reality is when you insert koach into it. That's the fuel to the fire. You could have a lighter, but if you don't have any fuel in there, it's not lighting up. The fuel is your koach, with all your bones. That's the sukkah. And when a person, he is mamish speaking with all of his koach, heim atzman adibarim shel Kadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi Nachman comes even deeper. He says, when you enter into that place, that you're so into your prayer, which you have to be to pray with so much koach. You have to lose yourself in it. Not that you're trying to lose yourself. You can't try to lose yourself. If you try to lose yourself, you won't. But when you're trying to be as real as possible, and from that place, you have tremendous fervor when you pray, you're going to find that you lose yourself in that space. Okay? Now, Rabbi Nachman comes to say, when you pray with such fervor, those words that are coming out of your mouth are no longer your words. Hashem is taking those words and projecting them through your mouth. Those are Hashem's words themselves. That's why Rabbi Nachman says elsewhere, when a person does Hitbodedut, he's able to experience Ruach HaKodesh. Doesn't matter what bechina he's on, it doesn't matter what level, it doesn't matter if he's Shomer Brit, he's wasting seed, it doesn't matter if he's keeping the mitzvot, he's Chilul Shabbat. When a person comes to do Hitbodedut, Rabbi Nachman says every Jew can experience Ruach HaKodesh. But that's only if you're praying with all your bones. And then Hashem himself will be speaking through your mouth. And that's why so very often when you have those moments of real intense prayer, you're going to see that the thing that you're praying for, very often the answer is coming out of your own mouth at that point. Because it's no longer you talking. It's Hashem. Through you.
You just got to listen to yourself.
You got to listen. You got to listen. Like it says in Yeshaya, I'm placing my words in your mouth. Hashem says it. The less the person comes and says, well, that's heretical. What do you mean Hashem's talking to you through your mouth? It's a pasuk. Hashem says this is the ultimate state. When you get yourself into a place where I can speak through your mouth. Who is the epitome of this? Moshe. Moshe, like Rav Walken, my rabbi, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, Nashama Shev and Aliyah, used to say that Moshe Rabbeinu was the first ventriloquist.
I like that.
He said he was just like a puppet. Because it says that the Shekhinah was in his throat. He didn't actually say anything, it was just Hashem speaking through him. Where did that koach come from? So it's explained that when Adam HaRishon, the first man, ate from that tree, which was the cause of all devolving and the cause of all destruction and the cause of all things just falling apart, right? The cause of chaos and darkness. So, in Kabbalah they say something unbelievable. We know that Adam was not just the first man, he's called supernal man because he encompassed all of mankind for all of the 6,000 years that we're here. That means that every single male and female that would ever be born his soul was within Adam. That is actually the reason why we're spending so much time trying to fix what Adam made an error on. Because you might say to yourself, well, how is that fair? Can you imagine? Some guy down the street, he does something crazy. And you all of a sudden, you have to go pick up the trash. Why should I have to do that? Because we were actually there. We were all a different part in Adam's body. Someone was his finger, someone was his eye, someone was his tooth. Many of the great tzaddikim, they actually knew which part they were. He's composed of many atoms. Now, in Kabbalah they say something unbelievable. However, there was one part of Adam that wasn't affected by the chet. So think about it. He ate this food, whatever it was, and Hashem told him not to. That food enters into your whole body, and everything becomes encompassed within that experience. However, you actually have two tubes. You have one for food, and you have one for breathing. And when you eat food, it doesn't go down the tube for breathing. Yeah. They explain that the soul of Moshe was in the tube of breathing.
And that's why he was Ruach.
That's why he's Ruach. And that's why the Shekhinah spoke through his throat, because he was the throat of Adam. He was the part that wasn't affected. That's actually in Kabbalah the place of Das. Okay, a lot of things we're throwing out there, but...
So does that mean also the other Yechidei Adaris also?
Say that again?
The other Yechidei Adaris?
Mm-hmm. They were all there. All in that place.
So there were two though?
Right, there were two tubes. One for the food.
One part that wasn't.
One part that wasn't, and in that one part you have the souls of all the great Tzadikei Emet that we...
What's the Kabbalistic term you said for supernal Adam.
Supernal Adam?
Supernal, yeah.
Call him Adam Rishon, or they actually call him Adam Kadmon.
Adam Kadmon?
Yeah.
That's not like in Kabbalah.
It is. But he, as a person, represented and reflected that thing. Okay? We're only reflections. Like when it says Hashem's hand, or it says Hashem's eyes, he's like all these things. So the Rambam says it's a mashal because Hashem's speaking the language of man, which is a chazal. That's true. However, in Kabbalah they explain that the truth is that we don't have hands and we don't have eyes. Hashem does. And ours reflect his. So we have no idea what Hashem's... He does have eyes, so to speak. We just don't know what that is. But the function of an eye gives us some type of hint of what it means that Hashem sees us. You can mamish do a very deep meditation on this. He's already there. And by the way, I love this thing in the religious world where like when someone's really into something or it's like making them feel a certain way, they go like this. I love that. There's nothing like that in the second.
Yeah.
And you see kids do it. You see like 70-year-olds do it. And you see like 15-year-olds do it. It's awesome.
I did it like 70 times tonight.
There you go. So there's a lot of koach here. Zehem atzmam davar Hashem. That these words themselves that you're saying when you pray with all your koach, they are actually Hashem's words. Them koach masav. They are the koach of his actions, which is from a pasuk from Tili. Now, why is that pasuk so important? Because if you look in the beginning of the Torah, which we're going to start over again soon, remember this Torah was given right after Simchat Torah, meaning right before Bereshit. If you look at the first pasuk in the Torah, Bereshit bar Elokim et Shemaim et haaretz, you look at the first Rashi, who's the most famous commentator in the Torah, who's explaining the simple meaning of every pasuk. The very first Rashi brings this pasuk from Tilim, Perek 119, Koach Ma'asav. Yeah. The strength of his actions, he's going to speak over to his people. Rashi explains over there what's it talking about. It's talking about, Rashi wants to know why is the Torah starting with creation. Right? Nowadays we need to, because we need to figure out how Hashem created the world, because that's the only way we can substantiate it for ourselves based on what we know scientifically. However, for thousands of years, Jews were not scientists. And there was no science in that way, right? So if they all believed in Hashem and they all were showing mitzvot, who cares how Hashem created the world? It's not relevant to me. Rashi wants to know, like a Pashut Yid, tell me the first mitzvah. It's like I remember when I was in Queens, and I started doing tshuva by like learning all these very deep things about how Hashem really does exist and how it makes sense with the world and all these things. I remember when I went to Queens and I started teaching these Bukharian guys, these Sephardi guys, and they're secular. They're in secular school. They're not even showing mitzvot, a lot of them. And I want to explain to them like, it's not far from you. That really Torah stems really well with what we know now. And they're all looking at me like their eyes twisted and like they have no idea what I'm talking about. And like one of them just comes to me and goes, David, we're not Ashkenazi. We don't need proofs for God's existence. We all believe in God. And we keep the mitzvah, we don't keep the mitzvah, we keep Shabbos, we don't keep... Everyone here believes in God. You don't need to prove it to us. We came to this class because we want to know Lamaisa. We want to know what to do. I was so jealous of them. I was like, I wish. You know how many years I'm working on this to get to a place like that? Unbelievable. But they just want to know, Lamaisa, what do we do? What do I do?
Yeah, that experience at Ish, when I got there, like, all the Ashkenaz guys were getting stuck. Do I believe in God? I'm like, yeah, I get it. Let's get it into it. Like, what's next?
Yeah.
And like all the other guys, it took them like a year to just kind of accept, like, oh, God exists.
Yeah, they need a discovery program.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, we have like 2 years of the trade.
Yep.
Wow.
That's it. Okay. That's Koach Masaf. So now Rashi wants to know, why are we starting then? Because he's like a good Sephardi Jew. He's from France, kind of Sephardish. Okay. Why don't we start with the first mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh? Why are we starting with the beginning of creation? Because he brings a midrash. There's going to come a time where people will live in the land of Israel. Sounds familiar? And the Jews are going to go and take that land. And they're going to come and say, you stole the land from us. And Rashi says, you're going to have to be able to confidently respond to them. You're right. But Hashem created the world, and He gave you that land, and then He took that land from you, and He gave it to us. Rav Natan has a whole question on this. How does that help anything if you're speaking to a person who's telling you, we stole the land of Israel, which is very real for us, this whole idea right now, we're dealing with this, and we're going to explain, let's say, to a Muslim or to a Christian or to a secular person, oh, no, you're right, we really did take the land, but Hashem created the world, like you see in the beginning of the Torah. That's why the Torah starts like that, so you can know that Hashem created it. So that now you understand that just like He created it and He gave it to you, now He took it and He gave it to us. So Rav Natan goes, but nobody's going to believe you. That's why they don't learn the Torah. If they don't learn the Torah, then they don't even believe in Maaseh Bereshit. They don't even believe in the statement of creation that substantiates that Hashem created the world and He gave it to you. So if Natan says, so then why does the Midrash say, this is the whole reason for the start of the Torah like this? That you should know so you'll be able to tell them. Rav Natan says something unbelievable. That you should know so you should be able to tell them. Not so that you tell them. But you should believe in it so much, it should be so much in your kishkas, in your heart, in your mind, that Hashem created the whole freaking world. And He took the land of Israel and He gave it to you. You should know it, that it's yours.
Yeah, but you yourself will start getting convinced, like, oh, maybe they're right.
Right. You should believe it so much that you're able to say it to somebody else. Not that you have to, but that you're able to say it confidently. Now, why does that matter? Because we're going to see in a moment that the land of Israel is the concept of praying with koach. It's the concept of praying with koach. You need to believe so much in Hashem that I can pray like that. Because a person might ask himself, why is it so hard for me to pray like that? Why can't I pray with so much koach? So you're going to say it's because social cues. It's weird to pray like that. I'm going to put out a theory. I'm going to venture a guess. That there's a deeper reason why we don't pray with koach.
The Yitzhar comes. The Sidrach comes.
In the form of what?
Thoughts.
And what are the
Old
steps?
Ashkenazi men
What
who
are,
like stare at you.
what are those thoughts? And what are those thoughts?
I don't like that.
What are those?
Distracting thoughts.
What are the?
Why is that so true?
But what are those distracting thoughts trying to imbue within you?
Maybe that Hashem's
Doubt.
not listening.
Safek.
Okay,
He's not
it's the
listening. Same thing. Safek. Yeah, he's not listening. So what are we saying here? We're saying, if, let's say, for instance, like, you know, sometimes you have hashgacha pratit. Something happens to you and you're like, oh my gosh, that was Hashem. I don't know if you ever had this, but sometimes it won't just be one thing. Like, you won't have it for days or weeks or months, and then you'll have one, and then mamish, boom, 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 boom. Yeah? He just lights you up, where you're like, at the end of it, you're like, oh my gosh, Hashem's real, He's everywhere. You know, it's like a, yeah. It's an unbelievable thing. Pray from that place, and see how much fervor you pray with. See how much passion you pray with. See how much conviction you have.
Like borrowing from the future.
Yeah. What is the land of Israel and praying with koach have to do with Bereshit Bar Elokim at the Shemayim V'Haaretz? Because if you mamish believe Bereshit Bar Elokim at the Shemayim V'Haaretz, if you mamish believe that Hashem created and recreates reality at every moment through those 28 letters of creation, you're going to pour your guts out when you pray to Him. And you're going to pray with so much fervor and so much energy, and you're going to advocate and you're going to fight until Hashem helps you. And it all comes from belief in that first pasuk. And that is called the land of Israel. We're going to see more in a second. Okay. This is the concept of chesed. Why? Because the pasuk says, Ki amarti olam chesed yabane. Speaking about when Hashem is going to recreate reality. This new world. Mechadesh the world, right? Christians are waiting for the world to end. And we're waiting for the world to renew. How is it going to be renewed? Through love. Oh yeah. Chesed Yibane. Be a good name for yeshiva, no? Through love, the world is going to be recreated. Through kindness, through chesed. Kamo shekatuv, ki amarti olam chesed yibane, ve'chesed hu bechinat sukkah. And now, this whole sukkah, when you go walk in there, you need to imagine this is straight chesed. This sukkah is Hashem's love. I'm walking into this womb of love. I'm being hugged on all sides, which we're going to get to in a moment, which is the reason why halachically you
Hugs
need
happen with hands.
2 walls. You need 2 walls, and you need a shtickle wall. So in Kabbalah they explain, it's this section of the arm, it's this section of the arm, they're about the same, and then you have a little tiny. So what is the sukkah? Hashem's hugging you.
Nice.
Beautiful, no? You're walking right into Hashem's hug, walking into Hashem's love. And when you pray with koach, you automatically recreate that space for yourself. And how are you going to see that Hashem loves you? Because when you pray like that, you're going to see Hashem changes your life. And that's when you realize, oh my gosh, Hashem really loves me. By praying with koach.
It's so funny how we can hear these things over and over again. It's just a fight for it.
Yeah.
You gotta pray with cautious to be able to pray with God.
That's right. And you also have to learn this lesson. Because it's the das that gives you the koach. You know, I had a student in our chabura, he texted me and he was saying that him and his wife, they just got married, Hashem, that they're like kind of cooled off spiritually, and they're having trouble feeling motivated to do the mitzvahs. So he said, like, we're just like lazy and I don't know how to change it. And I texted him back and he asked for advice. I said, first of all, you're not lazy. You're not doing things because you're lazy. You're not doing them because you're not inspired. What causes a Jew to want to do a mitzvah is he's inspired to do it. He's motivated to do it. It's like that with anything, right? A person says, oh, I'm lazy, that's why I can't work at this job. You're not lazy, you just don't believe in what you're doing is important. As soon as you do, you'll have motivation to do it. Where is this all alluded to? In the pasuk, ki ner mitzvah, Torah or. Mitzvahs are a candle, which have no light of their own. The Torah is a light, it's a light source. Means you need Torah to give you motivation to want to do the mitzvahs. Now obviously, the greater the Torah you learn, meaning the higher the revelation, and there's no higher revelation than Breslov Chassidus, then mamish, you light up those candles. And that's why you see many people who are totally secular, no interest in doing any of the mitzvahs. They start learning Likutey Moharan, they start learning Sichot Aran, they start learning Likutey Lachot, and next thing you know, they're involved in every mitzvah possible. Why? Because Torah or Ner mitzvah. The Torah is a light. Okay?
What's the idea behind the arrows?
What's that?
That's the idea behind the arrows?
No, but it is.
What's the idea behind the arrows?
It's the,
Really?
yes. In his Chut Bezrat Hashem, we should all have unlimited wealth to be able to support Talmidei Chachamim and truly poor, deserving individuals, because it's that tzedakah that's going to bring the geula, Rabbi Nachman says. Rabbi Nachman says, when you go to work, this should be your kavanah. This is the holiest kavanah you can have, he says. I want to make as much money as possible so I can give as much tzedakah as possible. Simple, no? This is the concept of a hug. The whole concept of the Sukkot, the Sukkah is a hug. It's literally a hug from Hashem. All year we're like, Hashem, come on, just show me you love me, show me you care about me, show me you're with me, even if you don't help me, if I just see that you're with me. You know how many times I pray my Yibodah? Probably once a day, at least every single day. I say, Hashem, please, at the end of my Yibodah, I go like, just give me a hug. I need a hug. Comes Torah to say, I got you for 7 days. And I want to hug you so much, I don't want you to leave the sukkah. Sleep in the sukkah, eat in the sukkah, whatever you do, even just hang out with your family, talk, play cards, just don't leave that sukkah. That's the hug. In Kabbalah they explain that from Rosh Hashanah up to Yom Kippur, which is the 10 days of Tshuva, that's when dinim are brought into the world, judgments. That's how the world's creation is taking place. It's being differentiated through those judgments. Your year is being determined through those judgments. But those judgments are, in a sense, temporarily pushing you away. Which is why very often in these 10 days, if you don't go to Uman for Rosh Hashanah, these are heavy days. Really are. Mamish heavy. Some people, they go to Rosh Hashanah because like, Rosh Hashanah is just too heavy for me. Not because like they're doing something at the shul, like nothing's going on. I just feel it's heavy. You could feel it. You can even feel on the first night more than the second night. This just feels heavier. Because there's actual dinim that are being brought into the world those 10 days, and that's why it's so important what we're doing in those days. Okay? But the Chaim Vital explains in the Shar Kavanot, in the Eitz Chaim, based on Rav Yitzchak Luria's teachings, the Arizal, that from Yom Kippur, right when it ends, Hashem starts pouring chasadim into the world, His kindness. And in the beginning, these chasadim are what's called panimi, they're called internal. And then from Sukkot, or the days preceding Sukkot, into Sukkot itself, they are these kindnesses that are external. Now, where do you see that external kindness, that surrounding kindness? It's the Sukkah. Sukkah. I was thinking as I was preparing for this lesson tonight, you have mamish a source for Rabbi Nachman's statement in Moach in Tinyana, right? This is 48th Torah in the first section. The Rebbe's letter, where Rabbi Nachman famously says in the beginning of that letter, it's the most unbelievable chizuk. If you haven't read it, read that letter, read it every day. That letter saved my life and has done it multiple times.
The Drupal?
What letter?
It's called the Rebbe's letter. They call it in Breslov circles, where Rabbi Nachman writes a Torah, but it sounds more like he's writing you a personal letter, mechaziking you, encouraging you, no matter what you've been through in your life, and no matter where you're at with Hashem right now, I promise you, all distancing is for the sake of being brought closer. And everybody who ever became a tzaddik had to go through this. But all distancing is for the sake of being brought closer. And when Rabbi Nachman says chizuk, you should know that chizuk is an actual Torah klal. It's an actual principle in the Torah. So I was thinking to myself, where do we see it? We see it clearly from here. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Hashem is distancing us. Then after Yom Kippur it's over, it's all for the sake of bringing us in. All of those judgments are to separate us so that He can come hug us. He can't hug you if you're already within Him, right? The whole idea of Adam and Chava being created and then being separated is because Adam represents Hashem in this case, and Chava represents the Jewish people. We are one with God, originally, and then Hashem severs from us, which is the cause of all of our pain in our life. But the only reason He does so is so that we can actually face each other again. Whereas initially we're back to back, so to speak, because we're part of like this one divine light, but we don't actually exist. So Hashem formed us from Him, but He did so, He had to separate. And now we turn face to face and we're able to come back together. And the Rizal teaches that from Rosh Hashanah to Shmini Atzeret, every year we're recreating that phenomenon. Hashem is pushing us away through holy judgments, from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, when your whole year is being decided. And then, after Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, He then brings us in with a tremendous hug and love. Regardless of how that we decided in those 10 days, you got to know whatever's going to happen, I love you. And it's all for your good. Then Utzel Yadi Kisiticha, because this pasuk which says, and I'm going to place my words in your mouth, then it says, and the shade of my hand is going to cover you. Meaning these two things are connected. When my words are in your mouth because you're praying with koach, then you're going to feel me hugging you. You're going to feel that sukkah. Shehi bechinat sukkah. Shehi bechinat tzel yad. That's the concept of the shade of Hashem's hand. This is the hug of Hashem's right hand. Bez Hashem tomorrow, or not tomorrow, next week, we will finish this lesson, and we'll do so right literally the night before Sukkot, which is on Shabbos itself, which is amazing. And Bez Hashem, we're all going to feel a really, really big hug from Hashem. Really big hug. Anyone have any questions from the class?
If you count on one foot, just I happen to be
Sephardic.
What?
Sephardic.
Everybody else is Sephardic impaired.
Yeah.
you were going through Chachma and Keter is Kamatz and
Chokhmah is Patach and
Tzer.
Bina
Would you
Tzer.
have any chance to be able to go through the rest of it?
Yeah, sure. I don't know the names of all of them. So I think I don't know the names of all of them. We'll help each other do it, okay? Chesed, right, so we have Keter is the highest sphere, that's Kamatz.
Because, real quick, before I show
Yeah.
you the thing, I was just discussing with a person today because, like you said, everything's just comes real good.
Yeah, sure.
Sarah by, I think it was Membet Berech. So he talks about Sarah, and the Samach and the Hay is Adnut, and you're trying to bring the Dibur out of Galut,
Right.
and bring it back to its Shoresh. And it said 27, the Resh Ayin of Sarah is 270.
Right.
Because the 27 letters, 22 letters plus Manatzbach, that's 27. And each one has Kalum Eser. And I saw this word, I'm like, oh, Kalum Eser. Rabbi Nachman, you guys just throw that at me, just like everyone's 10.
Right.
Just like, everything's 10.
Right.
I found this little Pirush, not a little Pirush, this Pirush from Rabbi Nachman Shern, I think it was Rabbi Nachman Shern,
Yeah.
maybe Beiba and Nachal perhaps. He said, well, there's 10 Nikudot. So each letter really can split off into 10 different directions.
Yeah. And there's a concept in Kabbalah that everything is divided into 10, and every one of those 10 is encompassed by 10. So whatever you find, like an atom, you can keep going down,
breaking it down.
right, breaking down to 10 more. Always, always, always. Okay? So we have Keter as the highest sphere, which is the unknowable head. It's super conscious. That is Kamatz, which means closed, because it's unknowable. Then you have
Agav, it kind of looks like the top of a doorway, kind of just
Yeah.
as if it can kind of open.
and then you have Chokhmah,
It's
which
closed.
is Patach,
Open.
which is open. The door is now opening to God consciousness. Okay. Then you have what we learned tonight is the whole lesson is revolving around Bina, which is Ima, or Tziri,
Creation.
which is these two dots. Now we're learning why are they the two dots? Because this is the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. This is Rachamim and Din, all being born within the womb of Hashem. Okay? In that case, that's Bina. That's the Sukkah. Now, we're going to move down to Chesed. Chesed is reflected through the personage of Avraham. And that's the Segel. The Segel is 3 dots.
Interesting.
Boom, boom, boom. Okay. This represents a very, very intense light. Elsewhere, Rabbi Nachman explains that the Segel represents the sun. So Abraham was a very, very big light. Very big light. Chesed is a very big light. Hashem's love is very intense. Okay? That's the Segel. And then you have Gevura. I don't forget the name of it, but Gevura is 2 dots like this.
Shva.
Yeah. Which had no sound. It's just bah, boom. Why? Because it represents din, judgment, Gevura. Okay? So in that sense, you have Tzeri, it's like the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, but now it's flipped like this. Okay? It's pure din.
That's like whatever's upstairs is downstairs, just exactly like a mirror.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Then you move down to Tiferet. Tiferet is the Vav with the dot on top. What's that called? No, that's Cholom. Right, Cholom. The dot on top, which is the sound O. O. Okay? That's the Vav with the dot on top. That's Tiferet. You're going to see how it's connected to Yesod in a second, okay? Then you move down, and Tiferet represents Hashem's compassion or beauty. Also represents Torah, okay? And the Vav is Gematria 6, right? The Torah was given, it was 6 by 6, right? There's a lot of connection to the Vav, okay? And the Vav looks like a hook, looks like a point of connection, because that's really what it is. Then you have Netzach is Chirik, it's just the 1 dot. It's Tzadik. It's Moshe. He's just mamish, it's right here. Boom. Punch you in the face. Okay? That is the Chirik. Okay? That's an E sound. E. Okay? And then you have Hod.
The 3 diagonal dots.
Yeah.
Kibbutz.
Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. That's Aaron. That's Hod. That's Hashem's grandeur. That's like within me, psychologically, that's like not me fighting, that's me submitting. Moshe is the concept of fighting, overcoming, breaking all boundaries, holy chutzpah. And then Aaron is the concept of whatever Hashem does, I don't understand it at all, and I submit, and it's for my best. And you see that reflected in their lives. Every time something happened to Moshe, his mom is pounding the table for Hashem to help him. And every time something happens to Aaron, and there's many tragedies that take place with Aaron, between the Chet Ego, between his sons dying, right? He just doesn't say anything. He's silent. Because he's Hod. Then you have Yesod. Yesod is Malepum. Yeah.
It's with a vav.
That's the same vav as before with Tiferet, except that that's not above, it's inside. So instead of the O sound, it's U. It's not O, it's U. Now the question is, why is it the same exact letter as Tiferet is Yesod? So in the Zohar they explain that Yaakov represents the big vav, and Yosef, his son, represents the small vav. In Kabbalah, Yaakov is Tiferet, and Yesod is Yosef. Okay? Now, in reality, everything that happened to Yosef happened to Yaakov. Right? Yaakov's brother wants to kill him, Yosef's brothers want to kill him. Yaakov has to run away, Yosef has to run away. Many different points of connection that they had between them. And the reason why Yaakov loved Yosef the most was because he was a direct reflection of Yaakov himself, except in a more concentrated form. He was going to be able to realize all of Yaakov's potential. That's the Yesod. It's the part of you that wants to realize your potential, which is the Yaakov in you, your Jewish soul. Okay? Right. So this is the U as opposed to the O. Okay? That's the Yesod. And then lastly you have Malchut. Malchut has no sound.
Yeah.
Because
there's one that's, I guess there's one that's...
Because there's actually really only 9.
Let's hold the 10th, so to speak.
10th is because there really is only 9. What are they with Malchut? There is no Nakuda for Malchut.
Chirik, Shva, Shurakut, Cholam, and then Malfumas again.
Yeah.
We forgot
Tzera.
Right, and Tzeri. And then finally you have Malchut, which has no sound. The reason is because in Kabbalah, Malchut is like the moon, which has no light of its own. Doesn't have a sound. And the truth is, all of the Malchut sound comes from the Yesod. Everything that's within the Malchut is coming from the Tzaddik. That's why it says the Tzaddik rules. The pasuk says Tzaddik rules, and it says in Mod Katan, it's Moharan Mod Katan, it says that the Tzaddik rules. What does it mean? Hashem is saying there's one thing that rules over me, which is the Tzaddik. That sounds like heresy. What do you mean? There's something that rules over me, it's the Tzaddik. It means, yeah, Hashem makes decrees, and He can't wait for the Tzaddik to change those decrees. Because it means that you've moved yourself into a space where you have totally devoted your life to Hashem, and you have elevated every part of your being, and now you are what's called the Tzaddik Yesod Olam. And in that place, Hashem loves to just give it all over to you. That's why it says that Yosef was Shalit. What does it mean, Shalit? It means he's in control. What is he in control over? Literally the whole world. That's why Paro told the inhabitants of Mitzrayim, or Mitzrayim is really a code word for this physical world, said you can't move your arms or your legs without Yosef.
Hashem's not a control freak. He can give it over. He said, here, take it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. He wants to. He literally created the Jewish people that we should all be like Yosef. Like the pasuk says that we are kulam tzaddikim. Right? Yosef is what allows us to manifest that nekuda within us, Yesod within us. And the last thing that I want to say is I was noticing as well that the gematria of Sukkah is 85, which the same gematria as Peh, the mouth. So you see a very deep connection between the Sukkah and what we're saying is prayer. What type of prayer? Prayer with koach. If you add the kola for the word itself, you have gematria.
Yeah, it looks like...
Samach is 60, and the Chaf is 80.
Hey.
It looks like... It looks like Adnut, and it looks like Adnut Yud Kei Vav.
All right. If you add the kola itself, you have 86. That's the same gematria as Elokim. And in Kabbalah, besides the fact that every different nekuda is related to a different sphere, also there's 10 specific names of Hashem that are referred to in the Torah, and they're each referring to a different sphere as well. The one which is referring to the sphere of Bina, which we now know is the Sukkah, which is prayer with Koach, is the name Elokim. So when the Torah in the beginning says Bereshit bar Elokim et Hashemayim et Haaretz, it's alluding to the fact that it's through the name Elokim that Hashem creates the world, meaning through Bina, through the womb, through tefillah with koach. Through the 28 prakim of that.
86. Sukkah is 86.
86. 85 plus the kolos is Elokim. And if you spell Sukkah with a vav, like he says, you have gematria of Amen, which Rabbi Nachman said you should scream at the top of your lungs. Because Zohar says that Mamish breaks all the judgments, and it taps into the 28 letters of creation. That says it's Tikkuni Zohar. Just like we're saying clapping, that's the same thing. Everything Rabbeinu is trying to do is to try to bring you back to the source of reality so you can change everything in your life.
Would you say like a man randomly or after a bracha?
No, after bracha, but specifically in Kaddish. Scream Amen, Yehei, Shmei, Rav. Yeah, it's a Gemara. But Tikkuni Zohar and Zohar delve deeply into what is the substance of that, what is the secret of that.
What's
Okay?
going down
Okay.
scientifically?
So Bezrat Hashem, this is Shabbat Tshuva. Take this, it's a time. By the way, Tshuva is also a code word for Bina. All related to Bina. Tshuva, Koach, it's all the womb.
Go back to the womb.
Go back to the womb. This Shabbos, Mamish, just go back to your real self.
28-day challenge.
Let go of all of the dross which you have picked up over the course of the years on your journey.
How can we tie in the Nun Shari Bina
To this whole thing.
The mikveh?
You just want another reason to go to the mikveh in the morning to feel good about it. I don't want to get people confused in the class because we discussed a lot of concepts. So I don't want to go into the 50 gates and Bina right now. Suffice to say, it's all related to Bina as well. Okay? And just like Moshe, I guess this is the way you can connect it. Moshe wasn't led into the land of Israel. What we're going to see next class is the land of Israel is also the concept of this sukkah. It's the sukkah which reveals the holiness of the land of Israel. Why wasn't Moshe led in? Because he didn't speak to the rock. He hid it. Meaning, he forced the issue instead of praying with koach. So he couldn't be led into the land of Israel because the land of Israel is the concept of Hashem is going to change your whole life without you having to do anything. You mamish, just pour your heart out to Hashem, Hashem's going to change it for you. Why couldn't Hashem let Moshe in? Because if Moshe was let in without teaching them that, then they would have lost the whole concept of the land of Israel. That is the land of Israel. That's why what we're going to see in the next class is the Gemara says that if you live in the land, it's like you have a God, and if you live outside, it's like you don't have a God. So we can understand very clearly why that is now. Because if a person doesn't pray with koach, he doesn't see Hashem changing his life at all. And once he prays with koach, meaning he enters the land of Israel, he says Hashem changed his life. When he does that, it's like he has a God. So even though every Jew has God, but in your life, do you feel like you have a God, or is it like you don't? That all depends. You pray with koach or not. Interestingly, Rav Natan heard this lesson. Right before this, he went home for Sukkot. Can you imagine? You're experiencing Rabbi Nachman for Rosh Hashanah, leading into Rosh Hashanah, in Elul. Now you have Rosh Hashanah with Rabbi Nachman. You have 10 days of tshuva with Rabbi Nachman, Yom Kippur. And imagine, Rav Natan had been searching for the deepest truth his whole life. So he finally found them. Imagine what that's like, and he's finally going home. He's going home to Nemirov, having found the thing that he's looking for his whole life. What does he do when he gets there? He turns his sukkah into a womb. He brings over all of the Breslov Chassidim who were living locally to him, and he brings them all into his sukkah, and he made that place such a place of such intense prayer. They were mamish screaming to Hashem in that sukkah. And when Rav Natan came back to Rabbi Nachman, this is what he wanted to tell him. Rav Nachman said to him, "How was your Sukkot?" He said, "We prayed so hard in there." Rabbi Nachman said, "You shook the heavens." And he gave this Torah lesson about praying with fervor in the Sukkah. So you can imagine what Rav Natan was thinking as Rabbi Nachman was teaching him this lesson. His knees were buckling, I'm sure. Everyone have a great Shabbat.
Amen.
Yeah.